All right, I call the meeting of the Accounts Committee together. It's January 28th at 5:30. We were supposed to start. My apologies to those of you who follow these meetings, but unfortunately, all of us had travel problems with weather-related issues and/or being trapped in another community because of road detours, etc. The meeting, I recognize a quorum. To my far right, I have Ward 4 Councilor Susan DeCastro. To her left, I have Ward 7 City Councilor Shirley Azak. And to her left, I have Councilor Marlon Green in Ward 1. And to his left, we have Councilor-at-Large Jeff Charnell. I am Councilor-at-Large Winthrop Farwell. It's my privilege to chair the Accounts Committee.
Can you speak directly to the mic?
It's my privilege to chair this committee for this year. I'd like to welcome the new councilors who were just elected. The Accounts Committee is an important committee that's established by city ordinance. It probably should be called a post-audit and oversight committee because we don't actually audit in advance of any bills being paid or purchase orders being entered into the system. But we do look over all of the records, and you received in your packet a couple of warrants to review for this evening. So with that said, if there are no questions at this point, I'd like to ask our auditor to just give us an overview of your responsibilities with the Accounts Committee and also any other information you'd like to provide.
Thank you, Councilor. In terms of my role, I am the basically gatekeeper for the city of Brockton's finances. I currently oversee $618 million worth of funding here. I try my best to do my job to stipulate every single payroll and every single AP warrant that comes through my desk where I put my signature on it. There's a lot more things, though, that the auditor can do that they haven't done in the past, and I kind of wanted to go over that, if that's possible. I don't know if BCA can put this up on the screen or not. Let me know if you guys can see that or not.
No, we're not seeing it.
No?
Nothing yet, no.
If you can't see it, then I'll just go over it, to be honest. So what I wanted to do in my 3-year term here, mainly the first year, we've had a lot of issues with the processes being extremely archaic. We've had issues with financial reporting where we're not meeting deadlines. That's one of my priorities right now, and we've actually met deadlines this year for the Department of Revenue. We told them we were going to send everything with a specific date, and we sent everything to them from a specific date. When it comes to performance audits, I'm not sure if internal audits have ever been done in the city of Brockton in the past, but however, I've actually done one, and my team has done one now. We've fully completed, and we have a draft that we're working on. We're, talking to certain departments, or a department alongside with the CFO and the mayor, to address the issues that we found with that internal audit. I do plan on doing more internal audits with all city departments at some point. Obviously, we have a lot of departments. It's not going to be, God knows how many departments we have. It's not going to be done in 1 year, but I will assess the risk. And depending on how big the department is, how much overtime they have, how, many transactions they have will determine the priority of the internal audits, if you will. I do want to establish an internal audit program. This is from the Internal Auditors Association. This is best practice to do. I know that when we walked into a particular department and we told them we were going to audit them, they kind of looked at us funny because they don't really know what powers the city auditor or town accountant or finance director have when it comes to internal audits. I have a sample charter that I'll probably send you guys to fill this out, but I do think it's best practice to do so. Excuse me. Which leads me to something that other municipalities are doing now that is best practice in establishing an audit committee. So what that is you have a committee of, for example, 5 people. It would be 3 members of the council, and then 2 members from the independent public, but they would need to have some sort of, CPAs, JDs, CPEs, things of that nature, people who are in the business or have been there for quite some time, people who are qualified to look at whatever we provide them or our external auditors provide us. And we'll go in and we'll look at these things, because what I have found, the 4 years that I have been here, and I've gone and looked in the past for the external audits at least, we have the same qualified opinion for 5 or 6 years in a row, and nothing has been done at all to correct any of it. So I do feel, and we can discuss this later on, I know that we're, short on time, but I do want this committee and the city council as a whole to make this committee. I do feel like it is best practice, and it's just, from a transparency point of view, will let the public know that we're actually doing something to safeguard them from fraud and waste. And also, just last but not least, we need to get the open checkbook back up. I've been trying to do this for quite some time. I know Mark DiAgostino. I used to watch the accounts committees, and I used to watch the finance committees, and that conversation would always come up about the open checkbook, and that will come up relatively soon. We're working right now with Open Architects to give us a dashboard, if you will, to basically show us like all of the bills that we paid for both city and school side. I'll take any questions if you guys have anything.
Councilors, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, can you use us as your audit committee?
Yes, we can. I mean, I think the best practice would be kind of like either council president would, decide who would be in the audit committee. Obviously, having people who are already dealing with warrants and issues with the auditor would be probably the best fit to be in that audit committee. However, best practice is to have 2 independent members aside from city council to have that external oversight, if you will.
Okay, let's explore that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Azak?
Thank you. Mr. Auditor, how long has Open Checkbook been down?
2021, 2020. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we are legally required to have some sort of dashboard like an open checkbook for the public for transparency purposes, and we haven't been compliant for quite some time, which is why I'm kind of hell-bent on trying to get this up and running as soon as humanly possible.
Okay, because, I was there when we established it on the IT committee, so it wasn't up for long.
No, it was not. They've stopped updating it, and it was just left there. And I remember going into the open checkbook dashboard that we currently have, and it's been inactive for quite some time. The census numbers are down. There's nothing in terms of the bills paid. Everything is just off now.
So is it the city's part, or is it Open Checkbook that's?
No, it's a city.
So we
Yeah,
have,
we as a city have to undertake that. So I would have to, get a hold of IT and figure out how to get this back up and running. Or if we don't use the open checkbook, we can use something like an Open Architect, because we're paying them via the municipal compact grant.
okay.
So we're paying them a lot of money. So they said that they could have a dashboard for us that would, do the same as the open checkbook that we had in the past.
That's great, but it's been a while, but if I remember correctly, we paid a lot for, IT established it. They worked on it for a while. It took a while to get it up and running, and I know Councilor Fowle was very, this goes back a number of years. but
Supportive.
Yes, we supported it, and, we were really, I thought it was running. I didn't realize that it was down, so, thank you. So whatever you need from us to get it up and running, it was really an important tool to have.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Councilor Green?
Just a couple of questions. You mentioned the audit committee, and also the establishment of a internal audit program. Are those kind of related, or are those two separate things? And
They're-
my second question is, could you just help me better understand what the difference would be, perhaps in terms of scope, or between this accounts committee and the proposed audit committee?
So in terms of the internal audit program versus the audit committee, even though they're two separate things that you guys will probably undertake, they both relate to each other, because ultimately what will happen is that when we have that program in place, people don't realize, I think in general, what the power is for the city auditor as a whole, either from a Massachusetts general law perspective or from the city ordinance that does stipulate that we have that authority. I feel like if we have that, and I quote, a charter in place, people will know, oh, they're going in, they're going to perform these duties. It also stipulates what we can and what we cannot do, right? So we would go in, we would test, for risk, we would test for fraud, we would test for waste, but we can't tell them what to do. All we can really do is tell them what is wrong and potential recommendations as to how to fix it. The auditor's role as a whole for best practice, we should never be making managerial decisions, ever. That is a conflict of interest in ways that are just astronomical. You don't do that. How it relates to the audit committee, we would have something like a draft or a final report that would come out, either for external auditors or our internal audits, and then we would go through and view the recommendations and the results, and we would see then afterwards, are these departments implementing these changes to fix whatever they have wrong in their department?
Okay, already. I'm certainly interested in exploring that with you, and I think that would be something of potential great service, I think, to the other city. Now, I understand that it is, from what you've said, is best practice for the establishment of an audit committee. Is it also best practice for members of the city council to sit on that audit committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as long as it's not the entire, like, for example, if we were to pick people from this committee here, the best practice would be to have, they usually say 3 independent members and 2 members of the council. I kind of want to have it 3 members of the council and 2 members independently, just to test it out. We know how politically charged the environment is in the city of Brockton, so I kind of want to have it as a pilot, if you will, to test it, where you have 3 members of the council, 2 independent members who are qualified. They cannot be just random people. They need to have the proper qualifications to be in this committee.
Okay, okay. And what have you seen in similarly situated municipalities in terms of the composition of the audit committee, and who is the appointing authority for the audit committee?
Usually it would be, for cities, I believe it's like a council president that would appoint. It would be the same concept. When it comes to the independent members, however, it would go through like a rigorous process of like, you would have to interview people, basically, to get in. You would have to look at the qualifications, you would have to interview. That interview process could be, council president, city auditor, right, or anywhere in between.
Okay.
But I'm not too sure in terms of how the ordinance would work, which is why I would need legal counsel to ask that question. But I'm pretty sure that if you had an audit committee, members of a council or select board would be appointed by something like a council president, but anyone who's outside of that realm would go through the same process that we would go through. We'd have to be interviewed and, just the whole thing, background checks, all of that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Jeff?
Just a couple of questions. So I'm assuming we do some type of audit annually. I'm assuming the state comes in or we provide something. And this year, you said we did it on time?
So The reporting of the financials to the Department of Revenue, yes. In terms of our external audits from our external auditors, Clifton Larson Allen, no. We've had severe turnover, as members of the council have duly noted in the past. I got put in a position, obviously, after my predecessor left, and we were scrambling for quite some time to try and get data to send to Clifton Larson Allen. That's one of my goals in there, that I feel like the auditing department should have the data readily available to us immediately. That hasn't been the case ever since the 4 years I've been here, ever since I've been an intern until now. It's never felt that way. It's been just like pulling teeth, and every single time that we do an external audit, we're always delayed on that because it takes a while to get that data. And I feel like we have to fix those workflows relatively soon, because that does affect, credit rating. Sometimes, either a Moody's or an S&P will say, you guys are taking too long on these audits, and they will withdraw or withhold the rating temporarily until, we show them that we have this audit, and then we will bring it back. But that should never happen. I mean, ratings should never be, withdrawn or withheld from these credit agencies. We should always do this stuff on time, but that hasn't happened.
So the external auditor provides a report. Is that report with the findings available?
Yes, there would be a management letter for, depending on what fiscal year the audit has been done for. That management letter will then say what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, basically.
So just high level, what did the last report indicate? And I'm assuming it's ongoing now, but what were the, top 3 things?
I feel like it's just more of the reconciliation portion of it when it comes to capital assets or fixed assets. The other thing is the grants as well. We have, I think, a massive issue with grants where, they're not, I don't want to overspeak, but I feel like we can do better in terms of the reconciliation of grants, because sometimes what happens is that, like something we did in fiscal '24, where I had to personally go and clean these funds out because there weren't appropriate reconciliations being done, and sometimes that can lead to clawbacks, as they say, for these grants. So, for example, if you don't fully spend a grant out, you either have to pay it back to the state or you have to pay it back to the federal government. And that's pretty serious, because then if you go and apply for a federal grant or a state grant, that agency will then say, well, why would you want more money if you didn't spend it all in the first place? So that does greatly affect that.
So just one question on actually the grants, since you bring it up. Would it be in your best opinion to actually purchase a grant system that can manage the grants so the information is readily available versus having it siloed in a particular department or with a particular person? It sounds like that's where the frustration lies, is that, if you need the information and the person's left for the day, how do you, and it's on their desktop, not in a drive or something that's available to all of us, how does that even work?
I think the issue is far more than that. We, as I mentioned before, we went live. We're not using Munis, our accounting system, to its full potential. And it does have a very sophisticated grant module that we could be using to track basically anything. We can even use that grant module to basically print out invoices on our own if we wanted to. That's how powerful this thing is, but we just haven't been using it. The other issue that we've had as well is with the turnover. Let's just say a prior auditor is here, does his or her work, has, their own documents or whatever, they leave. They don't leave anything behind for us to then say, how do you do this? How do you do that? What I'm trying to do, at least for my department, and other departments should copy it as well, is have like a repertoire or some sort of system in place where everything that you do, anything that you document, everything, your standard operating procedures, whatever the case may be, should be housed, in a public drive for us to see, because then somebody leaves, as you say, right? How do you perform their duties if you don't know what you're doing? You know, business can't just stop.
Yeah.
You have to keep going. There's been a massive issue here for the city of Brockton, and at least for my department, where I've had to learn the hard way, basically, to do certain things, because that data, as you mentioned, is not readily available.
Yeah. And just my last question is, the external auditor, can that last report be made available to, especially a counselor like myself that's relatively new and is unaware of what might be in it? Because I think that is, because again, if we keep on doing the same thing keeps on happening, is it online?
Yes, it's on.
The
It's public, and it's on our webpage for the city auditor site.
Okay.
Okay. Just a couple of comments. Starting in 2020, obviously, we had COVID, and then we had a turnover in auditors. The open checkbook, Mr. Auditor, I would probably suggest that maybe you just start at from a date certain that's relatively recent, instead of having to go back and do all of the data entry and post everything in the open checkbook. I mean, obviously, we have paper records and other ways of tracking the information, but I think if you were to try to go back 6 years and get that all uploaded, I would think that might be a problem. Number two, just for the fellow colleagues here, one of the things that's bothered me, and I do support collective bargaining and unions, but when a position becomes open in a department, let's assume that you've never worked in finance, never done any accounting or auditing work, never really got into any municipal data regarding finance. You, under your contract, can bid to leave the department in which you're located. Let's just arbitrarily say DPW, and take a position in the auditor's office. And I do not believe there's any restriction on how long someone has to remain in that position if they were to bid into your office. Am I correct? They could stay there 6 months, and then if another position is posted, they could say, well, you know, I like that one better. I'm going to leave. And so I think, respectfully to all of you, from a collective bargaining standpoint, the mayor and the law department needs to tighten up a little bit on when people can bid for a position. Minimal qualifications, particularly if you're going into finance, and certainly a requirement that you stay in a position for a period of time, because it doesn't help the auditor to perhaps have a new employee come in, train him or her, and then they decide, you know what, this isn't for me, I want out, and they bid out of another job. I mean, that constant turnover and that attention that is drawn from his work is pretty profound. And the other thing I would say is I think we've done a pretty good job, given the fact we were distracted by the school deficit. We were distracted by Nystrom, Beckman, and Paris coming in, and all of the information and records and materials that we had to prepare for them. But I will say that I'm very encouraged by having stability now in the auditor's office with you, and also an issue that's coming up in a few minutes, to have an independent, highly competent, focused auditor is so important for that $600+ million that you're responsible for. I mean, it's people's money. I always say this. We don't do anything in government unless people have paid their obligation, taxes, fees, whatever it is. And so reassuring the public as to how we're functioning, constantly working to improve things. And I would say to you, and I think my colleagues might agree, you know, don't be afraid to rock the boat. Bring some things up here that you think really need to be done. Some we may be able to do, some we can't. Some might require some additional revenue to be expended. But I do think auditing is that critical, important function of government to safeguard and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. So with that, we can proceed to the next agenda item if there's nothing more.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I just have a
Counselor.
quick question for our auditor. Two things. First of all, I think last year, I had requested that we receive a key to help us. I don't know if you remember, there's a way to be able to tell with the POs which department the bill belongs to.
He gave us one tonight.
Oh, it is? I didn't,
Papers he gave us tonight.
okay.
Did you
I
give
didn't
her one?
see it. I didn't get it.
I think it's that one.
Perfect. That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Perfect.
And for Jeff. We pass on to
This
Jeff.
is for Jeff. Thank you. Thank you, that's perfect, that helps, I know that helps in figuring out when we're looking at them, to locate them. The other thing is I'm very excited about this. I think, I agree with everything, that you brought up. I think it's long overdue, and anything I can do to help in that sense as a city councilor or on the ordinance committee to be able to write that ordinance, we can work together to do that, because I think it's, once again, long overdue. I think every department should be audited regularly. So, perfect. Last question, just to help our new councilors that are, that are new to the committee, because it's not easy always reading these POs. Can you just kind of give them a brief, like how to read them? Like what I know it seems like it's
Warrants.
easy, but the warrants. Like what if they're asking you a question, like, I don't want to.
Usually what you want to look at on these, excuse me, on these warrants is the purchase number, the amount, and
So the purchase number is the PO, that what's
Yeah,
marked
yeah.
PO at the top, okay.
so basically this doesn't, here's a caveat. I know that, I forget who it was in council, but you're probably going to see GL accounts or general ledger accounts that are very vague, right? Like other contract services, if you will, right? All you would have to do is just let me know. For example, if you have a question on a vendor, I know that Council Farwell has a question on a vendor that we're paying a lot of, and he asked as to why we're using that vendor instead of WB Mason when we have a contract with WB Mason. You would just give me that PO number, and I would just go in and look at it, and it will show on the screen here the invoice, the physical copy of the purchase order, and then it will also tell you what the services are. For example, if it's Amazon, it'll tell you what they've got from Amazon. If it's from WB Mason, it will tell you what you have for WB Mason, because these reports are not very detailed. I think the only real quote-unquote important thing on here would be just the vendor and the purchase order.
Perfect, so they just need to give you the purchase order and if the vendors, if it's there, and the total dollar amount.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, very good, thank you again, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is more to make everyone aware that there has been a legal opinion that was requested back in 2019. At the time, City Solicitor Nasrallah contracted with outside counsel to render an opinion on the role of the Chief Financial Officer and the City Auditor. I will let all of you read this. I would suggest that at our next meeting, we perhaps have our legislative counsel or someone from the law department take a look at this. As I read it, it reassures me that the auditor is truly independent, cannot be ordered to act in a manner that is inconsistent with state law, rules, regulations, Department of Revenue guidelines. He or she, and I think it's important to indicate, I'm not talking about Dr. Clarkson or our current auditor, but in general, whoever occupies those positions, they are truly independent. They function in a manner to protect the interests of the taxpayers and to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at this in detail. I do know we have Councilor Nicastro, who is an attorney. I don't know if she's taken a look at it. Mr. Auditor, I don't know if you want to comment or not. I'll start with you, and then if anyone else has a question or an observation.
All I'll say is that, You are correct that I have a statutory duty via Massachusetts general law and the city charter as well, a city ordinance. In terms of the independence part, at least, I'm not going to speak to all the auditors or whatever may have said in the past because I don't really know. But in terms of my, excuse me, my experience here, I have not been told to do something illegal or something that I wouldn't want to do. Everything that I have done thus far has been transparent, it has been within the law, and it has been within my judgment to do so. So I will reassure councilors that I have not been coerced in any way or anything from that nature, either from the mayor or the CFO or anyone else. I operate independently in that sense. If I want to, for example, do an internal audit on a department, there's no one telling me you can't audit this department. I go in and I make sure that I let said department head know that we're going in there and I do my business. There's no one that says you can't do this or you can't do that as a city auditor.
Well, councilors, the reason why I say it's so important to be independent is I know personally in the past, there have been people who have served as auditor, not our current auditor, who actually were directed not to send an email to the Department of Revenue unless it was first screened. I disagree with that. I do not think that someone who occupies the position of auditor should have to justify an email to a state agency, either reporting information or requesting information. And I will tell all of you that I will watch very carefully to make sure that our auditor is truly independent. Mr. Auditor, one of the things I was thinking about when I mentioned independence, in the past, and I know it's happened, someone will say, well, and I'm just going to arbitrarily take two departments. The cemetery budget doesn't have the money to pay this bill, but the police department's running a surplus, so just have the police department pay it. You know, when we approve the budget, even though money can be moved around within ordinary maintenance, unless it's separately appropriated, I expect the money to be expended by that department for that department's purposes. And I do not like the cross-contamination, if you will, of appropriating money for one department and then perhaps having it pirated away without a formal vote of the council to pay a bill, an obligation. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen. And then lastly, I will say, I am gravely concerned, and that's why I'm reassured that you're independent. We're doing too many we're doing too many transfers to pay obligations from prior years. And I think you're going to have to crack down on departments to say, if you have entered a purchase order and you know that we're going to have to pay a vendor, you've got to get the bill in from that vendor and get it paid so that 14 months later, we don't have to go before council and have money approved for that bill. We should be able to close out a fiscal year and know exactly where we are within a prescribed period of time and not have these things constantly pop up. And I don't know how anyone else feels, but those are some of the things that I'm happy that you're going to be independently reviewing. Anyone else?
I think the biggest issue, which is why these internal audits are so important, is just the lack of standardized operating procedures, right? Like, there are people that don't know, for example, the law that says that you have until July 15th to encumber prior year purchase orders. Or, for example, if you have, I'm just going to make up a department, like DPW, right? And they're just sitting on invoices and they forgot to pay them. I mean, you're hurting the credibility of the city, and you're also screwing over the vendors, the very same people that are engaging with you and providing services to the community. So this is extremely, egregious in my mind, and which is why these internal audits are super important to do. I can go in and see who's doing what and make sure that they're encumbering these POs and these vendors are getting paid on time. Because I don't like it when I get a phone call to my office and say, XYZ vendor isn't getting paid because whether it's the school department was sitting on POs or invoices, or DPW, whoever the case may be. That's something that you're absolutely correct. That with this new program that I'm trying to put in place, we need to start cracking down on that.
Okay. Counselor Charnel?
So currently, so I know you're trying to implement this program. Is there like any orientation that takes place where we sit down every department head with you and say, fiscal year, this is, the roadmap or anything that has taken place in the past, or is that something that you're trying to look to implement now?
That's usually what I'm trying to implement now. I've only done one internal audit thus far. This is relatively new, it feels like, because when I walked into this department, they were a bit shocked and confused. But it is within my legal authority to do so and to figure out, and I'll just say this, and, we've spoken in private with some counselors that we needed to audit this department because there's just underlying managerial issues, and with the performance of the health insurance trust fund, we had to foot that $7 million bill, if you will. So that's where we had to go in and basically say, look, what's going on here? This cannot happen because you're jeopardizing the city, especially when we use free cash to balance the budget.
Yeah, so us knowing that this has kind of been an ongoing issue for, again, and it supersedes you, so I'm not, what will be implemented will be essentially discussed with everybody, and I think one issue that I just already realized is that, it seems like everything lives on people's desktops, which is a bad practice. We have cloud services now. We have Google Drive, which is kind of our main engine. I mean, even what you're presenting today, I mean, I'm looking at it through, my phone because, I don't want stuff in paper. I want to be able to go in a drive, click on it, and be able to see it because that's what makes it accessible to everybody. So I think that practice, within your process needs to change because it's just not a well-balanced way to run any department. Because again, if I get sick and, Counselor Farwell needs to access something that I put on the drive, he can just go and grab it. And again, this stuff's, 99% of it's public record anyway, so that doesn't create an issue. But, this whole desktop thing needs to, that needs to be eliminated. And everything should live where anyone that has the authority, I'm not saying that, but anyone that has the authority like yourself in your department or, the CFO, the mayor, wants to go and grab the information, they have that ability and they don't have to wait till someone comes in or wait for this. And again, these things can be locked and, formatted in a way where they can't be altered, and all these things can take place. So if we don't change that practice, like right now, I mean, this is just going to be, none of this is going to change. I mean, I don't see this ever changing if you allow people just to put stuff on their laptop and computer, because the information doesn't belong to us. It belongs to everyone. So, that's how I think that needs to be in the repertoire of, what you want to implement, because, it's great to have the paper, but it's better to just go on the drive and be able to pull it up and whenever I want. It could be home on my phone or anything. So it was.
And the mayor needs to hold the department heads accountable for following the policies that the auditor sets up, because otherwise we're wasting our time.
Absolutely, and again, I think that there should be, things put in place where if people are not following these policies, that they're flagged somehow, because, it only works if everyone does it, right? So if you go in and you're like, hey, why aren't you putting this stuff in the drive? Why aren't we uploading these things? And they're not doing it. there should be some sort of consequence to that, you know, within reason, you know, I forget, you forget. But if it's habitual, if it's someone that's keeps on doing that particular thing, I think we have to address it, because it's a big issue if people are not using, you know, drives. I heard how I've heard how kind of City Hall sends a PDF, and it's like from, you know, archaic, you know. It should be where everyone can go in and grab a PDF and then type on it and then sign it digitally and then send it out, not copies to upload to, you know, again, I know you're I can tell you're very frustrated. You know.
It's tough because I'm not sure when this practice stopped, but there was a practice where we have a public drive where every single employee from the city of Brockton can access this drive. And it's for contracts, right? Something very simple. You have a contract, right, with $10,000, $50,000, whatever the contract may be for whomever. Now, when I go into these drives, not all of the contracts are in these folders. So if I wanted to figure out who has a contract with what, who do I go to now when it's not on the public drive anymore? So now I'm going to have to go to either the department, find the paper copies. You're just delaying stuff, and it just makes it so much difficult for me, because if I get asked a question by Councilor Farwell or whomever, I can't answer the question because I don't have that available to me. That's a big issue.
Colleagues, I know we're bearing down on the 7 o'clock council meeting, so I'm going to go on to the next agenda item, which is review of warrants. If there are any that we do not reach this evening that someone has a question about, please forward it to the auditor, and we will make sure that it's researched. So having said that, if people have questions on any of them, Councilor Azak, I'll start with you.
So on page 13.
Which warrant number, Councilor? 066 or 062?
066.
Okay.
On page 13, and this has nothing to do with the vendor. We all love the vendor, but I'm just 76985, and then it's only for $419, but the invoice is labeled December 25 prisoner meal. So are we feeding prisoners?
Yep.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
that are in lockup.
Yeah, when prisoners are held, starting Friday evening and over the weekend for arraignment, and it could be if they're arrested, I don't know, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and they haven't eaten, we do provide a sandwich and a soft drink for those who are incarcerated.
Okay. Same warrant, page 21, 11535. That, I see T-Mobile, which looks like a monthly fee for cell phones, but we also, so we use T-Mobile and we use Verizon, because I see Verizon like on the next page. Wouldn't it be beneficial just to have one cell phone company or one vendor?
I'm not going to speak for the current IT director, but I know that there have been talks to merge services to one, either Comcast or Verizon or whatever the case may be, because we are paying,
A lot.
you know, a lot to different vendors. It's kind of the same idea with the WB Mason thing, right? Where we have WB Mason as a contractor, or as a contract, and we purchase from everywhere else but WB Mason.
Okay, so let me see, so IT uses T-Mobile, so I'm figuring that's like for the whole city. And then on the next page, 4932 Verizon, that's 534, which would be what department? 534, there's no 534. 200, I'm sorry, 0135, I read it wrong. So that's so your department has the Verizon? Is that,
Yes.
okay, and then IT, So different cell phones are, so is it each department, or like does IT cover all departments' cell phones?
IT department covers all of it.
All of them?
Yes.
Okay, but then your department has, you have your
The
own?
the telephone services for the city, yes.
Oh, so that's the actual phone,
Yeah.
okay. Because some say wireless, some don't. 021, that's, okay, 021, and that's police. So the police has Verizon. So that's something that we're working on, to kind of consolidate cell phones
Yeah.
services? Okay, very good. So that's for that one. I did have a question on the warrant 062, P26-062. Let me just find it. In the meantime, I found this, you gave us this page with the different vendors
Yeah.
and year-to-date, how much they have, what they build the city. I just have a couple because some of them are like in people's like names. I wasn't able to find all of them in the warrants in this time since we've been here, but for example, Chirac Reginald, year-to-date, 141,350. What would that be for?
I would have to go back into the general ledger and figure that out because
There's a
that's,
bunch
yeah.
that are just in people's first names, and it doesn't look like I can't tell what it's for, so unless I find it in here. Let me see, I'm gonna, until I made a note in here, but that's fine. So with this list that you gave us with the vendors year-to-date, in order to get answers on these, should we just ask you, like there's a Eliason Robbins for 236,000.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can just shoot me an email with
with
that
these
with
ones?
that vendor number and the year-to-date amount, and I can go in and find that for you, with all the details on that.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm done for the moment.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, I have one then, and it's actually on the last page of warrant number P26066. And it says total EFT transfers, 15, and it's $182,271.36. Now, electronic fund transfers, for those of us who aren't in the banking business, but I'm familiar with them at home, does that mean that we pay invoices through the internet?
Yes.
Okay, and so we obviously verify, because that's an opportunity for fraud, we very carefully verify what we're paying and that we have all of the backup materials. And who would have the capability of authorizing an electronic fund transfer? Would it only be your office? Is it out in the different departments?
It's our office. We have a form online that the department would have to fill out. No, not the department, the vendor,
Yeah.
for whoever they're doing business with, whatever department, has to fill that out. It comes back to us with the banking information, and we go and then we track down the bank and make sure that we have the appropriate information from the bank. The bank has to verify that that information exists with that vendor. If it doesn't, then we can't do EFTs. If it does, then we've matched it, and then we can do the EFT transfer
Okay,
or
and
set
then
them up as EFT.
And then we get a receipt back that it's paid?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you for clarifying that.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead, Counselor.
So they're just listed as total EFT transfers. How do we get to review who got what and for why?
I don't believe it's in this report. That I would have to run a different report
Okay,
for
don't
that
you
to
think we
happen.
should, though, because that's part of paying bills?
Yes.
Yes, that's, okay? So for the next time we do this, we'll receive that report as well for the warrants that you give us.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselors, anything else?
I have a question.
All
I'll
right,
let Counselor Green go, because I already spoke, but.
all right, Counselor Green, go ahead.
On the EFTs, is there a fee that is associated with doing these electronic fund transfers?
I don't believe so. I don't want to misspeak. I would have to ask the treasurer, because the treasurer is really the one that cuts the check. All we do is we run the process in our office when it comes to, payroll and AP, but ultimately the people that cut the physical check or send the transfers will be the treasury department.
Okay, all righty.
It's usually no fee for doing electronic stuff. It's usually the preferred way, just to get the money quicker.
Got it, okay.
Councilor Azak?
Thank you. On warrant P26-066, page 11, the PO, hang on, 323-61258. No, I'm sorry, wrong one. The one right above it, the 323-61249, GRS Transit LLC. So it's stated that's all for homeless transportation, incoming, outgoing. Like how, is that the McKinney-Vento? Is that with the students, or what homeless transportation is this?
Yes, that would be for McKinney-Vento.
That's all McKinney-Vento?
Yeah.
Okay. And then right under, so that's the same thing, under H&L Bloom, that's the same thing? That's just another contractor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, councilors, anything else?
Mr. Chair, I do have questions, but we're out of time.
Okay, so we'll submit for the record to the auditor, and then we can always discuss something at the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Councilors, it would be my plan to meet at least monthly, so I'll survey you about the next meeting in February. Please, if you do have questions, get them to the auditor, because I want to make sure we are very thorough and meticulous in what we're doing. I would like to ask the auditor to have the young lady who does the school part of auditing, who was hired to be an auditor strictly for school revenues and expenditures, just to come in and introduce herself, tell us a little bit about what she does, and also to review the progress that we've made integrating, the two departments, the two functions.
I think it would be a great idea, just because we've recently received the response from the Inspector General's office, and it was very positive. When we mentioned that we now have Aminata Sharif, who is the Assistant Auditor for School Finance, working in my office, and we're very, very happy about that.
Very good, so. All right, if there is no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All right, so moved, all in favor? All opposed? We are adjourned.
having arrived, I call the meeting of the City Council to order. Would you all please join me in standing and saluting our flag? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you move your mic closer to you?
This one? All right. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Actually, first I'm going to read notices hereby given that the regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council was postponed due to inclement weather and City Hall being closed. They're properly posted to this evening, Wednesday evening, January 28th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Council Chambers, City Hall, 45 School Street, Brockton, Mass. Item number 1, we have the appointment of Luis Martins of Fairview Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority for a 5-year term ending January 2031.
That is referred to Finance.
We have the appointment of Natasha Jean Gillies of Thomas Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Cemetery Board of Trustees for a 5-year term ending in January 2031.
That is referred to Finance.
We have the appointment of Natasha Jean Gillies of Thomas Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Women's Commission for a 3-year term ending in January 2029.
That is referred to Finance.
We have the appointment of Stephen M. Owens to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term ending in January 2029.
Referred to Finance.
We have a communication from the mayor appointing Luis Martins of Fairview Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority for a 5-year term ending January 2031.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have an appointment from the mayor appointing Natasha Jean Gillies of Thomas Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Cemetery Board of Trustees for a 5-year term ending January 2031.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the mayor appointing Natasha Jean Gillies of Thomas Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Women's Commission for a 3-year term ending January 2029.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the mayor appointing Stephen M. Owens to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term ending in January 2029.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the mayor in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the transfer of $35,856.64. This transfer will fully fund the sewer enterprise's debt service category for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the mayor in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the grant award in the amount of $500,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to the Department of Public Works Highway Division. These funds are part of the Complete Street Grants and will be used to provide two-way vehicular traffic travel and vastly improved pedestrian and bicyclist accommodation along the Warren Ave corridor.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the mayor in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the grant award in the amount of $235,600 from the United States Department of Transportation and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to the Department of Public Works Highway Division. These funds are part of the Safe Streets for All SS4A grant and will be used to design and implement a demonstration project at 3 of the city's high-crash, high-risk intersections.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the mayor in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council authorize the approval of prior year unpaid bills of $2,976.75 in order to pay for invoices from previous fiscal years.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
Ordinances. Ordinance, whereas police and fire department candidates must successfully complete a statewide civil service examination and are then placed on a list of eligible candidates. City residents receive a resident preference, but many highly qualified candidates live outside the city. Whereas the police department has difficulty recruiting a sufficient number of highly qualified candidates for entry-level positions. An increased number of police personnel in all ranks are scheduled to retire in the next 2 years, creating more vacant positions. Whereas the school police and certain other school employees are already exempt from any residency requirement. Therefore, an ordinance amendment to the city's residency ordinance will provide opportunities to expand recruitment efforts for both public safety departments. Ordinance, an ordinance amending Article 3, Section 2-110 of the revised ordinances of the City of Brockton. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton to amend Article 3, Section 2-110, residency requirement of employment and promotion of the revised ordinances by inserting the following language at the end of the ordinance. Sworn positions in the police department and all firefighter positions in the fire department shall be expressly exempt from the requirements of these provisions.
Referred to the Committee on Ordinance.
Orders, we have ordered that the following name sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $35,856.64 from DPW Sewer Goods and Supplies to DPW Sewer Debt Service.
Referred to Finance.
Excuse me. Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $500,000 from the Mass Department of Transportation to DPW Highway.
Referred to Finance.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $235,600 from United States Department of Transportation, $188,480 from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, $47,120 to DPW Highway, $235,600.
Referred to Finance.
Ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the expenditure of $2,976.75 from Police Purchase of Service to Allcom, $465, to HD Supply, $97.63, to Proprio, $174.87, to Central Square, $286.16, to Thomson Reuters, $1,953.09.
Referred to Finance. Councilor Farwell.
Mr. President, this is a relatively small amount of money, and these vendors have been waiting to be paid. I'm going to make a motion to suspend the rules and act on this evening.
Second.
Councilors, there's been a motion and a second to act on this evening. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. We'll have a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Azak?
Yes.
Charnel?
Yes.
DeRosa?
Yes.
Farwell?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Lally?
Yes.
Nacastro?
Yes.
Texera?
Yes.
8 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted. Councilors, as we get to the next item, item 22, seeing as it is more than one page long, would anyone be willing to make a motion to allow the clerk to summarize it instead of reading the entire thing?
So moved.
Second?
Motion's been properly made and seconded to allow the clerk to summarize item 22. All in favor? Motion passes. Mr. Clerk.
I'm going to defer to the person who wrote this.
Item 22 would be a home rule petition to the state legislature to approve increasing the age for special police officers in the city of Brockton to be able to serve as special police officers up to the age of 70.
That is referred to Finance. Anyone for item 23? Motion to,
So move.
Second.
motion's been properly made and seconded to summarize item 23. It is more than a page long as well. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk.
Item 23 is an order for a special act to petition the state legislature for a home rule petition to amend our existing Chapter 324 of the Acts of 1990. This adds specific language to further expand and clarify the duties of the chief financial officer in Brockton relative to things like collective bargaining agreements and making sure that they apply citywide and school-wise as well.
And that is referred to Finance. Item 24, Mr. Clerk.
Item 24, resolved pursuant to Chapter 12, Section 24, and Chapter 19, Section 26 of the Brockton City Ordinances, the Chief of Police shall make an annual report to the City Council concerning traffic accident situations in the city, accompanied by recommendations, and shall report to the City Council the condition and organization of the Police Department, including a synopsis of the business of the preceding year with remarks and recommendations. Pursuant to Chapter 6, Section 33 of the Brockton City Ordinances, the Fire Chief shall make an annual report to the City Council of the condition of the Fire Department, including a synopsis of all losses and accidents by fire. And pursuant to Chapter 3, Section 21 of the Brockton City Ordinances, the Animal Control Officer shall make a biannual report to the City Council
stating opinions as to the maintenance and conditions of every premises holding a kennel license in the city. Wherefore, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Brockton Police Chief Brenda Perez, Brockton Fire Chief Brian Nardelli, and Animal Control Officer Thomas DeChillis to appear before the Public Safety Committee to discuss and provide annual reports in accordance with the Brockton City ordinances.
Referred to the Committee on Public Safety.
Item 25, resolve, whereas the city recently conducted its municipal election, and whereas it is important to constantly seek improvements in the election process so as to ensure support from the voters for the integrity and results of any election. Now therefore be it resolved to have the 4 election commissioners for the city of Brockton be invited to a meeting of the council to discuss election procedures and to identify improvements which may be initiated for the conduct of future elections.
Referred to Finance. Councilors, any late files? Councilor Farwell.
Mr. President, at the request of the mayor's office, I move to admit a late file.
Second.
Motion's properly made and seconded to admit a late file. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Clerk.
To members of the City Council, I hereby appoint Elijah Romulus of 48 Cedar Street, Taunton, Mass. to the role of Director of Planning and Economic Development.
As referred to Finance. Councilors, are there any moments of personal privilege or council's recognition? Seeing none, with no other business before us, I declare this meeting adjourned.